Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Welcome back to Old Man Rambles. And today I want to talk about the National Presidential um, Memorandum 7. I'm missing a letter there. Um, and, NPSM 7 could basically label me as a terrorist, depending on your definition of certain things. Um, this memo mentions that the left is instigating high-profile violence against um, the government and conservatives. It mentions Charlie Kirk's assassination in particular, and a couple other ones. It specifically does not mention any high-profile killings of Democrats, or attempted assassinations of Democrats, of which there have been several. Just as many, if not more so, of Democrats and left-leaning politicians as there have been of right-leaning individuals. So, claiming this is all on the left's terrorism is complete malarkey. I won't deny that, the left has engaged in violence against the right, but to say that it is only the left is blatant ignorance of the facts, or willful ignorance of the facts, or just outright lying, which, given the administration and the president's history with the truth or lack thereof, I would certainly consider it outright lies. But having said that, the wording of this memorandum is particularly vague. It specifically calls out extreme views on gender, religion, race, and gender. But it doesn't really give specifics of what those might be. Now, we all know what he's implying and who he's implying it towards. But and he mentions anyone who doesn't hold the views of the normal views of the American people. So like I said, we all know who he's talking about without him having to call it out, in spite of the fact they already called out violence only on the left. Now, I have some very strong problems with this, not the least of which the fact that it is specifically targeting people's opinions. This is not about actual violence. It is basically a club against people you disagree with, to be used against people that the administration disagrees with. And they're more than happy to do that. But this is a bad policy. The reason for this being is that these definitions are extremely vague, as I said. What's an extreme view on religion? Well, an extreme view on religion could be mandating prayer being in schools, mandating the Ten Commandments be in schools, mandating that the Bible be taught in schools. These could be considered extreme views on religion, because there are certain people who consider the separation of church and state very sacrosanct to American democracy. There are people who do not think that, and those people are currently in charge of the administration. But as I said, extreme views on religion and gender and so forth depends on who's defining the extremism. Under these definitions, one could claim Charlie Kirk was a terrorist because he had extreme views on religion and extreme views on gender and extreme views on race. They were extreme views that the current administration agrees with, so they wouldn't do anything about it. But if the current administration goes away, if the Democrats manage to take over the presidency, the House, and the Senate, they could use this as a weapon against their political rivals and be within the full extent of the law, because that is what Donald Trump is doing. Of course, he's using this against who he considers his opponents, not with any, he is making using the law as a club against your political rivals the law. So, like, people say, oh, he's not doing anything. It is currently against the law to target your political opponents for no other purpose other than them disagreeing with you. Trump is making it legal to target people who disagree with you. So if the Democrats came in power, again, as controlling all three branches of the government, the way the Republicans are now, they could use this as a club to weaponize it as a club against Republicans. They won't, because the Democrats are pussies, but they could. And that's something that I don't think the Republicans are actually, or the Republicans in power right now, are thinking about right now. Or if they are, they're assuming that the Democrat, either, like I said, the Democrats are pussies, or that they will not allow the Democrats back in power for this power to be used against them. That might work for a while. It will not work forever. No matter what the administration currently in power wants, there is no way to keep the Democrats out of power forever. It might happen for 10, 15 years. They may manage to, rig elections and kill democracy long enough for it to take a while. It might take a generation, but it will happen eventually. And when it happens, it depends on how it happens. If the next election cycle turns over and Republicans are voted out of power, I think things would go down. I think, it would calm down for a couple of years, but as soon as the Republicans got power again, they would just reinstigate this and begin using it to club Democrats that they didn't like. These are troubling times. I never thought that I would see this happen in my lifetime. I never thought I would see this happen ever in anyone's lifetime. The fact that this type of extremism is becoming the norm. The fact that people are cheering for this. People are ignoring the facts and are simply cheering for the destruction of their enemies simply because they disagree with them or simply because they don't like them. And the smugness, which I've mentioned before, the smugness with which they say that that's not true, which they say it's actually the left, the liberal left, who is doing all of this, and they're just trying to correct things. They're just doing what's right and normal and lawful, and they're not. And I know that I speak against the current conservatives and the current Republicans in the administration, and I have also come out and publicly spoken that I'm a centrist. I have voted both conservative Republican, and I've conservative right, liberal left, and straight down the middle when I thought it was appropriate. I am not tied to any political party. And lest anyone thinks I am demonizing the conservative right, virtually everyone in my father's generation, on my father's side of the family, my father, all his siblings, all their spouses, have all voted Republican their entire lives. Every single one of them. My father, his twin brother's wife, his older brother's wife, his younger sister, and that entire generation were all staunch Republicans, still consider themselves staunch Republicans. And every single one of them hates Donald Trump because he is neither of those. He is not a Republican. He is an autocrat. Donald Trump is the Republican president and presidential candidate most hated by Republicans. He did not win the presidency because people supported him. He won the presidency because people were upset about inflation, honestly. It's the same reason that Reagan turned over Jimmy Carter in 1980. People were looking for an answer. Trump was the only other real option, so they voted for him. A lot of the people who voted for him didn't support him. He was just the only other alternative to, Kamala Harris. And the fact that, the DNC basically foisted Kamala Harris on us. Not that I really have any strong opinions about her, good or bad, but yeah, the DNC screwed the pooch on that one completely. Kind of the same way once they forced Hillary Clinton on us in 2016. Um, but you know, that's history. That's old history, I guess, at this point. I'm just really frustrated and angry, and I don't think there's anything I do about it at this stage of the game. Too early to vote for the midterms. The midterms. I'll get into the midterms when the midterms roll around. We got some time left before things are get any more complicated. I've said my piece on the memorandum, and I'll leave it at that. Good hunting.